Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. Good morning, and please welcome our first speaker, Dr. James Grendel.
Thank you, and good morning, and welcome to the 6th Annual Long Island Live Endoscopy course, New Frontiers in Endoscopy, presented by Winthrop University Hospital. I'm very pleased to greet all of you here. The course director, Stavros Staropoulos, and director of Winthrop's program in Advanced Gastrointestinal Endoscopy, has assembled an all-star faculty from throughout the world who will update you today on the newest developments in advanced endoscopy and then show you how it's done by performing more than a dozen highly innovative complex cases. But a course like this and a program like the one that Dr. Stavropoulos and his colleagues have developed here at Winthrop would not be possible without the vision and generous support of Winthrop's hospital administration, led by Mr. John Collins, our president and chief executive officer, and Mr. Gary Schwal, our Chief Operating Officer. And I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to introduce to you today Mr. Gary Schwal.
Thank you, Dr. Grendel, and good morning, everyone. I'd like to officially welcome you to this great course that we put together today. When Stavros approached us a few years ago about this endeavor or vision he had, it was really, I think, cutting edge. And Winthrop has always been an institution that looks for cutting edge technology programs. We're certainly early adopters of technologies. We're kind of a sleeper hospital, I'll say, but when you start to dig into Winthrop, you really see what great talent, excuse me, what great talent we have in our staff and our physicians. And we have a lot of exciting things going on at Winthrop. Winthrop does have a tripod mission, which is to provide quality care, academics, and research. We broke ground on our 100,000 square foot research academic building this year. Will be opened up the end of this year. And this course, this exciting course that we're having, really demonstrates or gives us another example of how we support cutting edge technology and early adopters. We aligned again our international dream team for all of you, and I know Stavros worked very hard in identifying great patients and procedures, so you can certainly learn about I'll say the next role or next level of advanced endoscopic procedures, and we're very happy that people are able to join us today, and we look forward to growing this program year after year, and it's certainly worth the investment that Dr. Grendel mentioned earlier. I think this is, again, Winthrop likes to support, our tripod mission, and we do a lot of this stuff each and every day at Winthrop. So I'd like to now introduce the director of the program, Stavros, who works effortlessly every day here at Winthrop, and I just see he's trying to get, his laptop together. So if we all can give him a round of applause and thank him for putting this great program together. Thank you.
Hello, I'd like to welcome you all to the 6th Annual Long Island Live. I had some slides, so I'll try to do it from memory now. So basically what we are going to do again to this iteration of Long Island Live is focus on endoluminal surgery. It's a novel, burgeoning field. We're infringing further in surgical territory, so you're going to see cases of POEM, which is really thoracic surgery through the mouth, removing GI stromal tumors and leaving a big hole in the stomach intentionally. This is called, went from calling it a perforation to calling it a full thickness resection. And other innovative cases such as this by masters from all over the world. Oh, I have slides. Can you go to the next slide? So it's having the proper technical support is very important. Jeff Smulovich has been here for all 6 years, and with this complex equipment, it's expensive. But last year's course had the best HD transmission and webcast that I've seen in any live course. And Marilyn Cramps I'm sure has been bothered all the faculty repeatedly about their PPDs and, privileges and all that stuff. So, it's essential to keep track of the details. Can I have the next slide? It also requires the support of multiple people in the hospital. Administrative support is important for two reasons. Number one, this course needs a lot of money. Administration matches almost one-to-one the many dollars that corporate sponsors provide and the small amount that we get from registration. But also, it would not be possible to, say, run 3 rooms in our endoscopy unit with our own staff. None of the faculty brings their assistants. Run 3 poems simultaneously in an endoscopy unit. I got to remind you that most hospitals in the U.S. do poems in the operating room and have the staff to support these international matches. This is because administration, over the entire 6 years I've been here, valued innovation and development and research more than just the bottom line and what procedures we can get good reimbursement from. CME is important. Robert D'Antuono and Peter Sander, I know, write a lot of emails that you may find excessive, but it's important to push people to do what they are supposed to do when they are supposed to do it. The endoscopy staff, as I mentioned, is fantastic. Running 3 rooms. Actually, this year we're 2 nurses down from the nurses that we used last year for the 3 poems. So we have secondary staff that can do poems in all the rooms. Fellows will play an important role, particularly Rani Modale, who will be the advanced fellow next year, and obviously the GI practice, IT, media services, and others have contributed extensively. Next slide. These are our sponsors who, as I said, covered more than half the budget of this course that is, approaching $200,000 now in budget. Next. And obviously, thanks to all of you. I mean, this course is pretty out of the usual fare for advanced endoscopy. And, I had a lot of naysayers saying that I'm not going to get a single person if I diminish ERCP in the US and what's considered traditional advanced endoscopy to essentially no procedures this year. Actually, I do have 1 ERCP, but it's because it's an ampulectomy. But, we actually got more registrations and earlier this year than every other year where we had a good amount of ERCP in the US. Next. There will be a live webcast. I don't know who came with this atrocious URL this year. Last year was winthrop.org GI webcast. You can remember that, or Google Winthrop Live Endoscopy course and click on registration and then click the free webcast and that will take you to the page. You can watch this on your iPhone if you want, if you have to run somewhere. It's going to be running all day, including lectures and cases. Next. And some logistics. The ARS device, audience response system device, is hanging from your chair. I encourage the faculty and the moderators to ask questions. It's very fun to see what people would do on certain cases or what they would recommend from the audience. We can text questions to that number. It's Atul Kumar's number. He's one of the moderators. I think that's an easy way to ask questions. You can do the survey online to get your CME credits. The lunch is going to be a working lunch. You'll have about 30 minutes to pick up your lunch from the buffet out, and you can bring it back because there'll be a lecture by Repici on ESD in the West and by Gostout on bariatric procedures. And the nurses will have a simultaneous symposium by a widely renowned nurse on quality, and then John Day on electrosurgery. Visit our exhibitors during the breaks. End of day, it's again a rolling end of day. Sometimes we run over. My AV people have been nice to me for 6 years. They don't just turn off the lights exactly at 6 p.m. But then I irritate them about this issue. But I promise we won't go more than 30 minutes over. Faculty should do their disclosures, and then, as I said, everything from today will be archived in YouTube and Long Island Live website. You also have all the cases archived from last year, and they were pretty spectacular if you want to review what we did last year. Next. Actually, not next. I will introduce this later. This is Pete Stevens, my mentor. The first lecture later today, first we'll hear from our Chief of Surgical Oncology, but the keynote lecture, which we have done every year for the last 3 years since my mentor passed, Pete Stevens, will be dedicated to his memory. He was a great teacher and a fantastic advanced endoscopist, and he really imparted to me the whole concept of doing it for the love of it and for insane hours. And, this all paid off in the end. And, we'll remember him with a lecture again as last year by Chris Kostout, a fantastic out-of-the-box thinker and innovator in the world scene, whose submucosal tunnel technique is spawning all this great stuff we'll do today. But before that, we'll have a word from our newly minted Chief of Oncologic Surgery, just came from Columbia, my previous alma mater, a fantastic pancreatic surgeon with, 600 Whipple surgeries. He's not much older than me, maybe he's even younger. But what I want to emphasize is you can't really go and start doing POEM at Winthrop in 2009 or start full thickness resection in 2011 without having surgeons that are willing to be your partners and give you support and hold your hand and cover you if things start going south, etc. So it's a critical part for what we do here. So I'm happy to introduce John Allendorf.
Thanks, Stavros, and welcome everybody. I think I met Stavros about 12 or 15 years ago, and I have to admit, when I first met Stavros, I was fairly certain that he's completely insane. And my interactions with him over the next couple of years pretty much served to reinforce that impression. It sort of came to an inflection point when we had a patient over at Columbia with necrotizing pancreatitis who had developed a fistula to the posterior aspect of the stomach. And before endoscopic surgery, really the option for this patient was go to the operating room and have a formal pancreatic debridement. The problem with that is it would leave the patient with a wide open gastrocutaneous fistula, and it was unclear if that was ever going to heal. So although surgeons are supposed to make quick decisions and never be in doubt, and hopefully seldom wrong, we were sort of hemming and hawing over what to do for this patient. Meanwhile, Stavros booked the patient for what he called a retroperitoneoscopy, because we didn't have a word for endoscopic pancreatic debridement yet. And we kind of all looked at each other wondering what he was going to do. And then sarcastically we said to him, well, are you going to drive the scope through the known perforation in the back wall of the stomach? And without hesitation, beaming from ear to ear in his best Greek accent, he said, absolutely. Well, we secretly drew straws to see who was going to be on call that night for the anticipated urgent call to the endoscopy suite for the patient crashing. And as you might imagine, that call never came, and the patient got better, and I was out of the necrosectomy business, which I was very happy about. In any event, a little while after that, my wife and I were having dinner at a Chinese restaurant, and I opened my fortune cookie. And I'm not saying that fortune cookies really are good, give you a lot of good advice, but this one happened to say, innovators break all the rules, you should trust them. And I thought, well, I know this guy who breaks all the rules, and I think I need to learn to trust him. And that's what we did. And so we developed a partnership, but we couldn't hold on to him at Columbia for very long because he quickly outgrew the conservatism that the Ivy League tends to have. And he came out here to Winthrop and really has blossomed, as I think all of you know. And with some support from the hospital administration and tremendous support from Jim Grendel and the surgeons, who I think were very supportive of the endoscopic surgery and notes, it's blossomed into what it is today. And I was not as talented or as courageous as Stavros, so I stayed in the ivory tower for another 6 years. But when it became clear that really he had launched himself, I had the courage to come out here and start the surgical oncology program. And together with Stavros, we've increased our pancreatic surgical volume tenfold over what we did last year. So, and I think that's part of this, that comes out of the synergy you get when you've got a multidisciplinary group all focused on the management of a complex disease. And the other thing, as Stavros mentioned, you really need to, it's very nice to have a surgeon and a biliary endoscopist working together at the same institution, because each of you can push yourselves further to do more than you would otherwise be able to do on your own if you trust each other and you can back each other up. So I've only been here 9 months, but the program is growing, and it's been a great partnership. I'm going to have Stavros come back up here and introduce the keynote speaker. Thank you.